Hi there, welcome to another episode of the Restless Policing Podcast. I'm joined by Lee Broadbent. Hi Lee, how are you?
Hi, Martin. I'm good, thank you, mate. Yourself?
Yeah, good, thanks. Busy week for both of us as always.
God, yeah.
And lots going on. I think we'll just start. Let's just jump into it. I mean, what a week it's been. Obviously, you know Rich and Rick probably better than I do, but I've got to know them really well in the last year with the work we've been doing on the MPA. Brilliant news for them. Brilliant judgment. Brilliant verdicts. How did you find it? What did you think?
Yeah, well, it's what we expected from the start. It was an exoneration to no less a degree. It was another nail in the coffin for the Federation and a real exposure of still its very, very weak governance process. I mean, let's not forget, is essentially it's fallen in between the Op Sunrise review, which said that it needed to tighten up on its governance procedures, things need to change, and as opposed to changing, it's doubled down, and it continues to double down on the advent of the ruling as well. So yeah, it kind of expected it, but it was nice to once again read it in black and white how dysfunctional the organisation is.
I was slightly taken aback by the Police Federation's statement, having obviously my background is in communications. I was surprised to see an organisation like the Police Federation. Maybe I shouldn't be surprised anymore, but to say that a High Court judgment ruling is flawed.
Mm.
That's pretty strong. Like, you can say you disagree with it. You can say we are going to appeal. We disagree with the findings. But it's almost like I just found it strange to call it flawed, to use that language from an organisation that's supports rank and file police officers that uphold the law. It
Yeah.
just seemed like an incredible thing to say.
Yeah, well, first off, it was true to its defensive nature. We've not done anything wrong, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see what part of the judgment or evidence they indeed found flawed. Was it the analysis of their lack of due diligence around Article 10 and, the right of Richard Cook and Rick Pryor as elected officials, their higher sort of right or privilege to speak politically and it be protected? Was it that complete lack of analysis that was flawed, or was it the judge's assessment of PFEW's governance process and looking at what is written in legislation, what is written in the rules, and what the Federation do outside of both of them? And it's quite clear, the legislation in black and white says where there is a difference between the rules, where there is a difference between this memorandum of understanding, which nobody has seen in terms of the membership, which isn't printed on the website, which doesn't run alongside any set of rules. Where those things exist and they're in conflict with the legislation takes precedent. And it was quite clear from the judge's analysis that the way the organisation had handled the governance process was not in line with the legislation. So yeah, it would be very interesting to see what aspect of it is flawed.
Yeah, and then you've also got the juxtaposition, haven't you, in terms of the campaign the Police Federation launched last week. Very, very noble. We support the campaign. In terms of trying to raise awareness of the suicide crisis within policing, and we'll come on to the timing and why now, and the fact that it maybe should have been done earlier. But you've got the Police Federation saying their biggest issue or their issue at the moment is misconduct hearings should be kept, or misconduct processes should be kept to 12 months. So you've got that. And then you've got the juxtaposition here where you've got two Police Federation branch chairs who've been pushed through a high court ruling, the whole process. I don't know how long that's taken, a long time. And then when the judgment goes against the Federation, rather than go, look, this is two of our own, we're going to draw a line under it, they go, no, we're going to throw more money at it and we're going to appeal.
Yeah.
Odd.
It's ludicrous. But again, it's like we continually point out, the Federation is very, very good at saying some things publicly, but privately, it does things very, very differently. Often the complete opposite. I mean, look at Rick Pryor. His complaint and the investigation is now approaching month 16. The Hart's on month 18. It's absolutely ludicrous that an organisation can criticise policing and police chiefs for the time it takes them to conduct investigations, which often involve criminality, which often involve, gross misconduct and more serious accusations, when the organisation, the Federation itself, shows it can't deal with a basic governance issue within a relatively short time frame. It's ludicrous. I say people in glass houses shouldn't be throwing stones.
Yeah. And then all on the same day, we had Jonathan Hinder MP, who is a supporter of ours, and just to shout out and say thank you to Jonathan for for supporting the MPA. But he made the very valid point, didn't he, in Parliament? He sort of called it out, and the Home Secretary said that she'd effectively put the Police Federation on notice that things must improve, that the status quo cannot continue, and things must change. And then I'd imagine she didn't even know about this ruling at that point, and so you just wonder how much longer they can continue like this.
Yeah, you do. I mean, there was a nod in the white paper along the lines of what was said in Parliament in response to Jonathan Hinder. But I, it, as hopeful as I am about it, it's not like we haven't been here before. You had a very stern warning from the Home Affairs Select Committee all the way back around the Normanton investigations, which pretty much said that if the Federation refused or failed to implement the reforms required, then it would be a dereliction of Parliament to let it continue. Well, that was 10 years ago. We're still here. They've still not implemented the reforms back from 2014. In fact, we've had another on the back of some more catastrophic failings of the organisation, which again point to bullying, point to discrimination, point to an inward looking insular organisation, one which is defensive, one which uses all its money and capital in order to bring silence its critics. How much more evidence do you need to say that this cannot continue? So yeah, I'm hopeful that it might have been the warning shot that is now required, and which pushes that door a little bit further open for us at the NPA. But I'll reserve judgment on it fully and continue to pursue all legal avenues.
Absolutely. I should say at this point as well, if people are tuning in now that we have a bigger reach via the MPA, we have done other podcasts. So if you want to see what Lee and I have been discussing, probably in the last 9 months, 10 months, then hop on to YouTube and scroll back. They're all there. Some very interesting topics discussed. Talking about then, we mentioned the suicide crisis within policing, and we've put out a piece for the MPA as well, haven't we, in terms of what we would like to see change, and that can be found on LinkedIn and on our website. Again, to anyone tuning in, I'll put the links below this podcast. I remember being at the Police Federation in 2019, and we were talking about suicide in policing. And I remember going into meetings where we were talking about potentially launching campaigns to highlight the ongoing crisis. And it got to a point where we'd maybe come up with a few ideas, got sent in, nothing happened. COVID came along and it stopped. And that wasn't the first time that people within the Police Federation or staff members have tried to maybe to launch some kind of campaign or awareness. But that's the point you've made, isn't it? That the Police Federation are now calling for misconduct process to be limited to 12 months. They're talking about a crisis within policing with suicides, but they've been at the table throughout. So there is a legitimate question to be asked as to, given that it's such an emotive subject, such a critical subject for us to talk about, why now? Why are the Police Federation now jumping on this when they could have done this 10 years ago? They could have done this. I know when I was there, we tried to get this campaign launched 6 years ago.
Yeah.
So what's happened now for them to do this? What are your thoughts on that?
Like you say, I mean, I think it was back in 2014, maybe 2017, that there was the National Police Suicide Prevention Programme, and the PFEW had a seat at the table with that, along with the MPCC, police chiefs, and the College of Police and Oscar Kilo, a whole range of stakeholders, etc. And as we pointed out before, this data isn't new to the Federation. It has held on its own systems data and information on police officer suicides. It has links to its life insurance products that it offers via its 43 branches. There are death grants that the organisation they give out when they were notified that an officer had died whilst on duty or in service. So it has the data. You're right to say, why now? What's been the big stoke? And let's not forget, even its recent article on this topic was prompted by an external news report from Channel 4, which was initiated by a campaign group, whether that Trojan Wellbeing or whether that was Vicky at Investicase. It was prompted essentially by an outside organisations looking at the inside, going, "What the hell are you doing? This is an absolute crisis." And then all of a sudden the Federation had jumped into action. Now, if I was a cynic, I'd say, it needs something to pin its badge to in order to regain some of the political, maybe political is not the right word, but in order to gain some of the credibility that it's lost, it is now looking to pin its badge onto this new campaign, which is silly in my personal findings. I think if you're going to do something, do it for the right reasons. As we've mentioned before, Martin, they've had this data for some time. It's not new. They are, to my view, as much a part of the problem as they are trying to say that they are the solution.
And we've put together an article, haven't we, which hopefully people can go and have a read, that maybe goes into a bit more depth in terms of what's needed, rather than just a time limit, and how actually putting a time limit on it could maybe cause other issues. You could get to the point where if it's limited to 12 months, you get to month 11 and a half, and you're like, oh, we need to close this. And you don't maybe speak to the witnesses you need to speak to, don't come to the conclusions you need to. What are your to me, it feels like just saying 12-month misconduct processes will solve this issue. That feels a little bit too simplistic, doesn't it? Surely there needs to be more thought, more
Well, like I say, it is a simplistic option. It's one that people can reach to point to quick political wins, without actually solving the underlying problem. I mean, don't get me wrong. We all know that lengthy investigations have an immense toll on the people that are involved in the investigations, and even so, the victims that have made these complaints, because, as we've said, justice delayed is justice denied to some degree. And so it is right and proper that investigations are expedited in an efficient manner, just as it is in policing. If we're handed a crime report, we're expected to deal with it diligently and efficiently. And I would expect the same in terms of allegations against police officers. But you're right, having a cliff edge to some degree could be productive. It's a good steer, but it doesn't matter whether you're under investigation for a year, 18 months, or even 3 months. If the way you're treated during that investigation results in your isolation, results in a decline in your mental well-being, cuts you off from friendship and support networks because of the way that suspensions are issued, or removes you from your current established team to put you somewhere else because you can no longer be operational, all that kind of stuff that builds in this notion of guilty before any sort of investigation has taken place. That's the stuff that really has the impact, because, any investigation into a police officer cuts to the core of what a police officer is about. We all believe, to some lesser degree, I mean, sure, there's some malevolent so-and-sos out there that don't believe in the codes of practice or the essential foundations of policing and are just bullies or otherwise. But the majority of police officers do believe in the code of ethics and do believe in the standards of professional behaviour, not because they're written down on a piece of paper, but because these are the qualities that we uphold in every aspect of our life. And therefore, to then be accused or told that actually you are not in line with those qualities, well, you're not only challenging a decision or an action, you're challenging a fundamental principle which people hold very, very dear, and that can be devastating.
It does feel like you need a complete reform in that area, doesn't it? Where, for example, if you're accused of, I remember when I was at Police Oracle, and we couldn't believe how, for example, if there was an officer who went to remove somebody who was shoplifting from Tesco, and went in, and he was a homeless gentleman, and the officer bought him some biscuits, took him outside, and took him away, and he was suspended. And then on the other hand, you had officers who've committed what you would consider to be real misconduct, and they were also suspended. But you thought, this guy's bought a homeless man biscuits. Does he need to be suspended for the process? There surely needs to be a point where they say, for these alleged misdemeanors, you can stay on duty, or you can stay on at work and do this area of, if it's this serious, okay, then we need to suspend you. But surely that they need to decide on that, because it doesn't seem that those clear guidelines are in place.
But this is part of the other problem. People look at misconduct as an individual failing and not generally as a systemic or cultural failing. Because take that officer, for instance, that bought the homeless person a packet of biscuits. That the person may have gone in, tried to steal those biscuits, was caught, apprehended. The police officer arrived and decided, well, actually, does this warrant further investigation? Does this warrant that crime report, etc.? Bought the biscuits and thought that would be the end of the matter. IRS dictates that you have to record a crime report, and then there's only certain ways that a crime report can be properly finalised and closed, and buying the perpetrator a packet of biscuits isn't one. And therefore you might have to be creative with what you write on that crime report in order for the crime report to be filed. And then someone finds out or makes a complaint, and then you're up for honesty and integrity. Well, you're not being dishonest, you're just trying to work within the system and the framework that it's the same with these new performance targets that are coming out of the white paper, as we saw all the way back in 2009, 2010, when you introduce targets into policing, you will generally introduce perverse practice, because cops are very good at finding ways to hit targets. Whether it be you record crimes differently. So a burglary is all of a sudden a criminal damage, because no entry was gained and you can't really prove the motivation. If the target is to lower burglary, then you just change the crime type. And this happened in 2009, 2010, which led to a massive crash in confidence in the way that police recorded crime statistics, right? So we need to really, really look at the wider system pressures and what that then translates into individual officers. And then we need to look at consistency across the board. That's where the policing white paper may be useful. The reduction in forces, it's not a new thing. 1946, I think, the first time around, when it was consolidated to 117 forces. And then 1964, where we went down to the model that we've got now. That reduction further down might assist us in misconduct proceedings, because it might provide us with a degree of consistency across the board, and at least officers will be treated fairly, as opposed to the postcode lottery or the whims of the whichever chief constable wants to look strongest or not.
And then you go full circle, or we go full circle back to what we discussed at the beginning. And then you get to the point where you've got yourself, Steve, Gemma, Rich, Rick, Mark Jones, who, when you've been suspended by the Federation, you've been faced the same from the Federation, been effectively thrown out of the organisation, offered little to no support, most of the time no support.
None.
Nothing. And again, it just feels so ridiculous for an organisation to be calling for officers to be held to their mental health through misconduct processes, when they treat their own representatives like that.
Yep, when they ban them from their own buildings which they contribute towards through the subscriptions, when they tell them they're not allowed to speak to fellow colleagues other than the nominated welfare rep, they completely isolate them from the friendship networks. It's ludicrous. And then they have the gall to, as I say, challenge police chiefs on the way police chiefs may handle these things. It just doesn't sit right. And I can't see how more people don't see the hypocrisy at the heart of it all, which is a driving factor of why the Federation are not seen as a credible voice. You can't be credible if you're doing exactly the same thing you're trying to criticise. It's just, you lose your voice. And I say you lose your voice, we lose our voice, because it is the only one that can speak for us.
Absolutely. And that's why the National Police Association now exists. That's why we're doing what we're doing. To anybody watching this or listening to it, please do support us. We've got our LinkedIn page, which is, we've done very well to amass 1,500 followers in a little over a month, which is fantastic. Please follow us on LinkedIn, follow us on Twitter, or X, I should say. Follow us on Facebook. Visit our
Always going to be
website.
Twitter. Always going to be Twitter.
It's always going to be Twitter, isn't it? I prefer Twitter. I want to go back to the old days of Twitter. I miss Twitter, not bloody X. Visit our website. The links are all over our LinkedIn page. They'll be at the bottom of this podcast. If you can go to our website, if you can make a donation, because we're in the process of launching a judicial review against and the Home Office calling for a change to the Police Act, so we can offer you, police officers, representation should you choose us. So please do get involved in our fights and support us as best you can.
It's probably worthwhile saying there that we're anticipating the government response to our judicial review on it's either the 12th or the 16th of February. So we'll know a little bit more about things then, and probably do another refresh and an update.
Brilliant. And there's so much, we've got lots coming up as well, we should say, to our viewers, listeners and supporters.
Back in Parliament soon.
Back in Parliament soon. So absolutely. And the first one went very well, and we're hoping the second one's going to go even better.
Yeah, definitely.
Brilliant. So good times ahead. So we're hopeful that we're focusing on bringing a positive resolution to police officers who perhaps feel like we do and the others. So please stay tuned. Say again?
Tired.
Yeah, it's been a busy week. It's hard, isn't it? Because it's all voluntary as
It's
well.
exciting. It's exciting. I think I'm running on the fumes of sheer joy and excitement from every little bit of news that we get day to day, which just enhances our step forwards, being that new credible association. It'll be worth the sleepless nights and the busy days. It's running on sheer excitement.
I have to say as well that those of us that are involved in our chats and in our groups, the energy is incredible, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's so much energy. There's people working with us behind the scenes as well, so a massive thank you to them. But the energy from everybody involved with the MPA project is just fantastic, isn't it? It's a real positive. It's so good to be involved in this.
People using annual leave because we can't get facilities time, unlike the Federation. I mean, we're using annual leave to make sure that we're engaging and meeting with people to further these debates, going to Parliament's taking annual leave. We're doing 40-hour jobs and then coming home and doing additional 2-3 hours to try and get things sorted. And then you've got family and all the other stuff on top of it. So yeah, it's busy, but it's incredibly exciting. It will be worth it in the end. Nothing easy ever comes. You've got to work. You've got to work to make things happen.
Completely. And I think from the support we're getting and the comments we're getting, I think the people are seeing that. And so again, thank you to people for their supportive comments and then just support in general. It means a lot to us, and it shows that we're going about it the right way and that we know we're building that support network. And here's to 2026.
It's our year. Your voice, your choice, your future.
Very well said. We'll leave it there. Thanks, guys, for tuning in, I should say. And please do join in by engaging with us. We'll be back soon. Lee, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and we will see you soon on The Rest is Policing. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Stay safe, people.